Welcome back. I'm Gary Parr.
And I'm Christine Williams.
And you are listening to Fiber Talk, the twice-weekly podcast for people who play with needles, thread, Congress cloth, ground cloth, wire.
Stuff.
And stuff. Yeah, throw in the stuff. We got the stuff, yes. And our guest this week, Diane Bertelson of Pepperberry Designs. Hi, Diane.
Hi, guys.
All right. From the Colorado area. Yes.
Yep.
So we have counting you 3 time zones this week. This is almost spanning the country. It's very exciting. So we got this thing here, a bio. It's kind of fun. Passion for needlepoint 15 years ago.
I probably should update that. That was probably 18 years now.
Okay, so 18 years now. A member of a charitable organization, design expertise and stitching efforts. All right, so we got to learn about that. You have a degree in graphic design. A true artist. Professional creative experience at companies Nestle, Eldon-Rubbermaid, and then just a dedicated needlepointer, which is good. Canvas design. February 2013 was Pepperberry Design. So there we have it.
Right.
Kids. Gardener, I relate to you there. Floral arranger, there's the artist. Oh, and artist. And then you just went with artist, just in general. Yeah.
As if that was not captured prior.
Yeah, I think we have it. And then inspiration for needlepoint, color, textiles, holiday traditions, travel, family, and pets. Okay, yeah, that pretty much gets them all. So there we have it. There's Diane. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week. Yes.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
So now, 18 years ago, you started. So needlepoint or cross stitch, or how do you get started?
Well, it was needlepoint. Well, to go back a few years before that, quite a few.
Okay, so this bio is useless then, because it's 15 and then 18 and
That's right. I didn't want to write like a full dissertation on my life. So I actually was introduced to needlepoint by my mom, who she crafted. She did knitting and sewing and crocheting, ceramics, crewel embroidery. You name it, she had done it. But she didn't do needlepoint. But for some reason, she bought me a needlepoint kit. And so I did the kit. Of course, at that point, it was just all basket weave. And I'm sure my basket weave was probably more continental than anything. I have no idea what I did. But, I finished it and that was it. And I went on to the next thing because I was kind of like my mom. I do a lot of different things. And then, and the reason I know it was 18 years ago, it's because my daughter had just been born. And I joined this charitable organization that I had to be a part of a committee. And so I'm looking at the list and I see needlepoint tree skirt. And I'm like, cool, I can do that. And let's see, that means I'll be doing it mostly at home because I now have a 2-year-old. And I think by the time we started it, she was 3 months. And, home is good. Meetings are, a pain. So I got on that committee, and each one of us had a gore of this. I think there were, were there 8 of them? I think there were 8 gores to this. So it was a 6-foot tree skirt. So each of us had a pretty big panel, and I would put her in her little bouncy seat and I would stitch. So, and that was it. I mean, I got bitten by the bug, and I haven't stopped ever since. So, so that's how I got into needlepoint story.
What's that like doing? I've never done it. What's that like doing a group thing like that where everybody has a panel? Do you feel pressure to measure up, or do you just stitch your part and be done with it? It seems like a weird dynamic that goes on there.
Well, so the person who had designed it, she had drawn it out onto, I think it was 13 mesh at the time, and she gave us the fibers and we knew where everything was supposed to go. So they all went together. So it was, I didn't feel any pressure. I guess I was just doing my thing. Maybe everybody else did, but the funny thing is that next year I was the one who headed up that particular committee. So technically that was when I did my first design. My first design was a 6-foot needlepoint tree skirt. How about that?
Way to go, low key. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Well, being a graphic designer, it was like, oh, okay, well, I had my idea. I did it in Illustrator, and I, did this big, 6-foot drawing essentially, and had a blueprint place run it off so I could put the panels on top of it and draw it on. So, it was right up my alley.
Right.
That's actually a really cool way to do it, because then it's a unified thing for all of them.
Right. So it was fun.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that's a real advantage to be able to know how to use Illustrator and do a design like that. That's a real plus.
True.
Or, being able to draw, little things like that.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that art background really comes in handy.
Yeah. So you were doing graphic design at all these corporate companies too?
Right. So when I got out of school, I started at an ad agency when computers were just coming out. So when I was in school, all our graphic design was totally by hand, and I worked there and got used to the computers, and of course as they evolved, I went to different places. So I was the package designer for an office products company, which eventually merged with Rubbermaid, and then after that, I was in package design at Nestle, and so it's you just kind of learn as you go. Nowadays kids can learn all that stuff in school. So
yeah, back in those days, to be able to do computer graphic design, that was powerful. That was powerful capability. Yeah. Wow.
But I went to school in the dark ages, so.
But package design is really fun.
Oh, I love it. I love three-dimensional. I really love three-dimensional work. So, I had like an environmental design class in college, and it was all three-dimensional, and that I just thrive in that. So yeah, and now I'm sort of designing in, well, it's two-dimensional but three-dimensional at some point, right?
Right. Yeah. So then what makes you leave the corporate world? Kids?
Actually,
or I've had enough of it, I'm out of here.
Well, truth be told, it was probably part of that, but my husband and I at that point we had just, I think we met about a year before I left Nestle, and I left because we moved from Southern California up to Central California. So, and then kids and just everything kept going, and then one day I woke up and I'm like, okay, so my kids are getting older, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
Because I have to do something. Yeah. So
I love that. I love that. Anybody who's raised kids, we did this and this and this. We got married. We had this, and then kids, and that there's a 20-year span there, and then yes,
that's right.
Yeah, and then kids.
That's right. I'm sure my kids probably had wished that I decided to start this a little bit later in their life. I guess my oldest was probably had just started high school when I started doing this. So, and then my youngest was, he was still in grade school. So, a little, it can be a little challenging trying to balance it all, but, in the end, I'm happy they're happy.
There is something to be said for having something to do besides mother,
Yeah.
You become, I found, when I was working, I think I became a better parent because I had something else to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
It gives your brain a little bit of a stretch in a different direction.
Right.
And then when you come back to your child, you actually have something to bring back.
Right. And then some occasional guilt for feeling like you're working too much.
Yes. But then you turn that guilt into, very intensive parenting, and then that's actually a good thing.
That's right. Oh.
Hang in there, Diane. Christine will get you through all this.
Okay, so you can give me your phone number after this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, me, it was, I had to work. There was no choice. So, it was tough, but it was exactly that. I found that after the months and months of feeling like, I was abandoning my child, I realized that he really didn't care because he had lots and lots of friends and he was doing way cooler things than I could provide for him.
Right.
B, I was getting to be an adult and doing my own thing. And then I was coming back and being, a more attentive parent because I was there, and I'd satisfied my need to be intellectually stimulated and to have my own sort of group of friends and things like that. So yeah, right. I think it's great, and it is time consuming. And as I sit here and my son is in his room, and he's in that 14-year-old age of I really don't want to hang out with you anyway.
Yeah. I get that.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's when you're happy. So there's parents. So you were talking about, diverting into other things. There's parents that once they have a child, they give up all of their hobbies and things that they do because their hobby becomes, and their entire life becomes their child. And I always wonder what they do when they hit this age where a child says, okay, that's fine. I love you and go away because I want to be a little independent and do my own thing. Like, what do you do if you've given up all the things that you used to do, right?
Right.
For me, I feel guilty for about 2 minutes, and then I feel sad for about a minute because I feel shunned, and then I say, oh, I can do something I want. And I don't have to feel guilty about it.
Yeah, so very true.
And thus ends our parenting segment. So, okay, so I'm still, go ahead. No, go ahead. Keep parenting. Keep going.
It's just the balance.
Right.
It all ends up balancing out.
Yeah, I think that's life, You've got to find the balance for everything, because when you're too heavy in one area, it always seems to come back and bite you in the rear.
Yep, and everyone's balance point is different.
Yep, that's true.
Go ahead, Gary.
Now.
Take us back.
I think we're finished.
I'm learning things. So, okay, so what triggers you're needlepointing all along here while you're at the corporate world, I assume? What triggers I need to design stuff?
Yeah, not in corporate, because that was all actually before the whole needlepoint thing started. So yeah. So what was your question? I'm sorry.
Well, I just trying to.
I got distracted by the shining object.
That'll happen. Yeah. I'm just curious about how it is you go from corporate work and graphic arts to needlepoint design. I mean, it just seems like such a leap that
Well, I in one hand I can see that. On the other, as a graphic designer, design is design, right? You have clients that say, I want, a logo, and this is what I do. And you're always working with somebody, and this is kind of, it's like you're a problem solver, right? So a visual problem solver. So it's, needlepoint designing is kind of the same thing. It's like, well, okay, so this time I get to pick the subject. I can, I have an obsession with snowmen. So I was like, hey, I can do whatever I want. It's the world is open. So it's kind of the same, but different in the sense that I'm pleasing myself. Not that I don't want to make stitchers happy, because I certainly do. And sometimes I have people who say, hey, you did this. Can you maybe do this? And I'm like, sure. I'm open to a lot of things. So, did I answer your question?
Well, sure.
Yes. And I think I was just about to ask, do you design mostly things that are of your own making and driven by what you want to do? Or do you find that you're designing towards what things end up being popular and what things people request?
For the most part, it's what's locked up in my head. Sometimes, and inspiration comes from sort of everywhere and anywhere. And sometimes it's just having a conversation with somebody, because I can't seem to turn it off in my head. And I'll hear something that somebody says, and it's like, something starts percolating in there. And, the next thing I know, I'm like, well, I'm getting out my sketchbook and writing. Sometimes I'll just like write words or write notes, or, it could have been like a pattern that I saw on a scarf that I went, ooh, I really like those colors, but at the same time, for instance, I designed a Hanukkah house. So I have a series of little, I call them cottages. And I did one for Hanukkah, and I had someone email me, probably about 6 months ago, and said, hey, I did your Hanukkah house. I'm actually over in England, but I have a shop that I buy stuff from in Boston. Could you, it's not Boston, I think it was Washington. She's like, would you consider doing a Passover house? And I said, sure, why not? So, that kind of came around. Well, oops, the Passover house isn't out yet.
Oh.
Newsflash, it's coming out in January. Oh, my secrets, they're out. So that's how that came about. And, we chatted back and forth in between email and saying, so what is it that you think is important? And then I actually, my best friend is Jewish, and I talked to her a bit and sat down and did that. So sometimes it comes from things like that, but 99.9 of it is just the whimsy in my head coming out. I think it's my alter ego.
I love the way you designers will have, like, I'm looking at your houses right now. You'll have this idea, just a general idea, like houses, and then all the things that you can do with a basic, front face of a house, and
right.
And it's so much fun because your Valentine house, and then an Easter one, and then a patriotic, and it just you start with a house. You got different, and they aren't all the same house either.
Right. That would be too boring.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotta mix them up a little bit. And there's more of those in my head that still haven't come out. So.
Well, it's smart. It's smart from a very, sort of analytical sales perspective too, because if people stitch one house and they like it, then they want to stitch another house. So doing series of things makes a lot of sense, because people like collections of things.
True.
So if you do one, or like the snowmen are another good example, you do one, well, one is nice, but having three of them together is even better. So, it's it's a good way to sort of market things as well.
True.
And it just makes sense, because if people enjoy doing one, they're going to want to continue that enjoyment by doing something else that's similar.
You hope so.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I could do Pepperberry snowmen for the next 20 years. Holy smokes, that's a lot of snowmen.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, but I have no idea. I've always loved snowmen, and well, frankly, I love Christmas. I love the holidays. I love Halloween. It's funny. Halloween is one of those things that shops, either their customers do it or they don't. It's that one that's just seems to sort of sit on the fence, and it's not like Christmas is, or
right.
But
we've talked to a bunch of people who've said that it depends on the area of the country that you're in, that you'll have different sales, different things will do well in different parts of the country.
That's very true. It's when I get trunk shows back, it's always interesting to see what people in those areas, the different areas, are gravitate towards. So I think every place is different. I mean, like, some places do tons of belts. I mean, I know that my friend in Massachusetts, they do tons of belts, and but other places are ornaments, or it is just kind of interesting.
Do you try and design for different parts of the country? Is that something you worry about, or is it just always what's in your head?
Nah, I can't worry about that.
Okay.
That would take way too many brain cells.
Oh, okay.
No, it just no.
Okay, just curious.
No, I just do. I don't know how to describe it. I don't know.
No, I think that's interesting. Artists that we've talked to several of them now, and
maybe
you all describe it in pretty much the same way. You just do it. It's in your head. It just falls out and ends up on a canvas, and there's no step-by-step explanation for it. It just happens, and I think that's I think it's fun.
Well, and to the rest of us, it just seems like this magical thing, that's completely unattainable, because to all of us, that doesn't happen.
Right.
No magical art things fall out of our heads onto canvas or paper or anything else. So,
and that's the fun part. I'll do something, and sometimes I start with a sketch, and usually that's the way it goes, and I scan it, and then I take it into Illustrator, and then start really sort of cleaning it up and moving things around and really refining it, but the fun stuff really starts happening when you put paint to it, because it just seems to come alive. And I know I'm on the right track when I start smiling in my head when I'm painting, because that's if I'm not smiling, I'm like, it's bad. It can't. There are times when I've done things and I've been working on things, and I'm like, this is just not right. This is not right. I'm not smiling. I'm not happy. And then sometimes I'll take that first canvas and I'll cover some stuff up, and I'll go back and I'll change it. I'm like, there it goes. So then I have to do yet another version so that I have a nice clean copy of it that doesn't have all the the mistakes in it. But it's kind of funny. I mean, you just start to get a feeling about it, and Usually I'm pretty good about it, but you never know. Sometimes I think that's the funny thing about this whole business, is some of the things that you create, you're just never really sure how they're going to be received, because you're stuck in your own, well, I should say me, I'm stuck in my own head, in my own little world. I feel like I'm in a bubble, right?
Right.
And then I'm like, yeah, I don't know if this is going to be good or not. And then you put it out there, and people like it, and you go, okay, so that was good. But there are those times when you do things and you're like, this didn't take me long enough. I'm not sure if it's good, if it's good enough. I mean, it didn't take forever. So, but sometimes the quick things, the things that just come in and you can spit it out onto a canvas, you just never know. It's a crapshoot. Yeah.
Now, most of your stuff is relatively small. Is that intentional?
No, it's just, I think really timing, just because, I'm sort of it. I'm the bookkeeper, I'm the shipper, I'm the receiver, I'm the painter.
So you paint all of your canvases then, huh? You don't have them set
well,
up?
I only paint the original ones. I do send them off to a service, although I have to tell you, my first show, I had no idea that there was anything called a painting service. So the order, and it was a good thing that it was a June show. If it was a January show, I probably would have gone, oh, what have I done? But
so you went to a show and then came back with orders that you had to paint?
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, and at the same time, I was, I had been introduced to a company that does painting, and I was trying to get everything going with them, but it takes a while. So. Yeah, that was a good time. Yeah, but I actually have a lot of larger pieces already designed and planned, and some of them I was supposed to get done for January, but it just doesn't always work that everything gets done. But they should be, since I've already got them designed, I should be able to have them out in June. But I'm hoping to have 3 of the larger pieces done for January. They just won't be at the painting service yet. They'll just I'll show them and send them on their way after. So I'm going in that direction. But I think the nice thing about some of the smaller things is they don't take forever.
Yeah.
You can buy something and not be stitching on it for 9 months to a year.
Right.
But a mix is good. Yeah. So
I like that your designs have areas of a color, so you can develop a stitch and you're not always compensating. You can or feel like you just have to do basket weave because nothing will fit in this space. And there's lots of larger areas and yeah.
Well, as a stitcher, I usually try to keep that in mind. And if there's a really wonky small area that I've got, I try to see if I can't avoid it, because I know that somebody's going to go, well, why did she do that? But I think needlepoint has just evolved through the years. I mean, there you can have a lot of complicated illustrations and everything, but I think these days it just seems like more and more designers are opening their designs up and having more space so that you can get creative with stitches and fibers and all kinds of fun stuff. So
yeah, we have so many threads, and I think we probably always had the stitches, but we're certainly aware of more stitches through books and all the online options. That, it's almost a shame not to take advantage of that with a design.
Oh yeah. It's funny. I have this one canvas, and it was actually in Needlepoint Now, back in, I think it was the July, August issue. It was a patriotic love canvas, and it was really, really simple. And in my head, I could just see it. I could see it stitched. I mean, I wasn't, picking stitches in my head, but sometimes less is more, because you can do a lot with it. And so I called Timmy Schultz, who's done several of my stitch guides, and I'm like, okay, so I have this piece, and I really want to see it stitched. So would you be interested in doing this? And she said, sure. So I sent it to her, and one day she calls me and she's like, oh, I'm having so much fun with this. But then she said, but I have to tell you that when I got it, I was like, this is really simple. I don't know. And, but sometimes simple just lets you have so much fun with the creative part of stitches and fibers and beads and everything else that, and it's an absolutely beautiful piece. She did a lovely job with the stitch guide and the finished pillow. So yeah.
This stitch guide, you bring up the stitch guide thing. I think it's an interesting phenomenon. I mean, it's really taken hold to the point where it seems like if a canvas comes out, the first question that's asked in any forum is there a stitch guide for it? Do you try to have someone develop stitch guides for your patterns or your charts?
Not always. I think that sometimes I've been asked by people if they can do a stitch guide for a particular piece, and sometimes it's really when, like perhaps with the love canvas, I'm like, I really need to have a stitch guide for this one, because I can see it's so simple that, I'm not sure that everybody will see, the interest of it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, they're not going to see what you're seeing.
Right. So, but yeah, I think, a lot of people do ask for stitch guides, and I think that, just sometimes people need a jumping off point, whether they use the guide thoroughly as it is, or use some of the stitches and then do some of their own. I think, that's what guides are meant to be. It's kind of a guide. It's like, well, here's what I came up with, but, everybody has their own sort of take on things. And, I think it's fine to change, stitches or fibers or what else. I mean, that's kind of the fun of it. But I think sometimes, people get stuck and they need a little help. So I think, there's a pretty broad range of stitchers out there. There's everything from people who have no idea what to put in a space to people, in the middle that, have some idea, but sometimes they just want a little guidance. And then there's a lot of people that don't want guides at all, because, they, half of their fun is, doing that and coming up with their own stitches. So they serve a purpose for sure.
Yeah. Some websites you can go to and there's just rows and rows and rows of stitch guides, and I've never used one. I looked at one. I have a canvas and a stitch guide came with it, and it was, whoever did it, it was just a bunch of pencil scratches on a copy of the canvas. And I thought, well, I expected more sophistication, and because I assume that formally produced stitch guides are pointing to areas and showing how to, here's the stitch and where to start or something. I don't know what all goes into those things.
Right. I think, generally speaking, most of them are like that way. And like, you find them in Needlepoint Now, and that's the way they are when you get that particular guide in your hand. They'll have the nice computer illustrated piece of the stitch with the directions, and but I've never seen one included with a canvas that was that was really sounds like it was more of a rough.
Yeah, I think it probably was, but yeah. Well, and that's just it. We don't think about in needlepoint now. Those are literally stitch guides, but very formally put together and very neat and tidy. And when you have a piece in a magazine like Needlepoint now, do you? I assume you have to jack up the number of canvases that you have available. That takes right off.
Usually, yeah. I mean, that's and it depends. And sometimes you get, that burst at the beginning, and then things trickle in, and then you get more bursts. It sort of depends, I think, on what people are really wanting to do, and the holidays and everything else. There's a lot that plays into it. But when those magazines are around for months, I mean, you can still have somebody call and say, "Oh, I saw that in Needlepoint now." Yeah. So it certainly does, put things out there and make people certainly aware of things. So,
do snowmen sell better in the summer or the winter? Well, see, I always wonder about those holiday-oriented charts and patterns. Do people do them in the summer if they're a Christmas thing, so they have them for Christmas, or does the Christmas season, for example, inspire them to, I got to do a Christmas thing? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture.
Oh, of course, it's a mixture. I want.
Yeah, it's there's no solid answer to that, but I think a lot of times people are working towards getting things done by that finishing deadline, and then sometimes they like to stitch the same kind of things during the season, so they have that sort of, I don't know, seasonal feeling instead of it's Christmas and it's snowing and they're stitching Halloween, but
yeah, it kind of makes sense. You want to stitch something Christmassy at Christmas, even though you're not going to finish it.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I think it's, I don't think there are any hard and fast rules about anything. Sorry, Gary.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Jeez. I wanted a Christmas in July thing that, would be, everybody's got to line up to do snowmen in July to have them ready for December.
Well, if it would keep them colder, I think they would, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I tried. Put me down for trying. Yep. Mm-hmm. Thank you. So do you get to stitch? Do you get to stitch much yourself, or are you constantly designing and painting and doing trunk shows? Oh yes, trunk shows. Talk about trunk shows. I find that a fascinating phenomenon. You have those going on all the time?
I do. This past year, I decided that I wasn't going to do any in December.
Yeah.
Because it just gets to be way too crazy. It was funny. I was talking to a shop owner one day, and because there's all the good and bad, especially with all of the internet and everything else. She was telling me that it used to be that, they brought trunk shows in as sort of a perk for their customers. We'll bring this designer in and, you get to see a good portion of their line and everything else. And now it's a lot more commonplace, and everybody has trunk shows, and they're all out there kind of all over the place. And shops will advertise them, and it's there's really no solution because the internet is not going away.
No.
And so the marketplace is flooded sort of with trunk shows, but it's really a great way, especially for me. I haven't been doing this long, and it's a great way to get exposure because, there are a lot of people that still don't know that my company even exists. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's a lot of work to put one together, but on the other hand, or I should say on the other side, it's a lot of work for the shops to put them out there too, because, there's just a lot to, you've got to make sure that you've got everything that the designer said they sent, and, pricing and everything else. So it's just work on both ends. But I think it works out well for everybody. So,
Yeah, we talked many weeks ago with Debbie Woodward at Painted Pony, and it sounded like it was a big part of her effort. She had somebody to help her to track all the trunk shows and where they're going and what goes out and what comes back. Seemed like it was almost a miniature warehousing effort just to manage all of that.
Yeah, trunk shows can take on a life all on their own because, it's a lot of work because you've got to pull all the canvases. You have to have, make sure that you've inventoried everything and you know what you're sending. And, it's the packing and it's, which is, it's a very time consuming thing, unfortunately, but,
But effective marketing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
The personal stitching, you get to do any of that?
Oh, not so much.
There she pretty much answered that question with that great big pause, didn't she?
I think so.
Yep. Pretty much. Big fat no.
Yeah, I've stitched a few of my pieces. Maybe 3.
Really? Oh my.
Yeah, it's so truth be told, if I sit down with a canvas, I have a really hard time putting it away.
Uh-huh.
So, it's that obsession. It's like, well, I'll just finish up this fiber and then I'll tuck the needle in, and now that I've finished it, I really should put another one in and anchor it in so that, the needle isn't just floating around. And then maybe one row. I'll do one more row.
Sure, everyone can identify with that.
Yeah, it's a problem. But, it's also kind of the way I am with designing as well. I'll start something and I feel like I can't stop until I get it out of my head. So it's this obsession thing is a good and bad thing.
Yeah.
It's right. It's a useful thing to carry.
Yeah.
To look at the side of it.
I know there are a lot of designers out there that take the time and stitch. And I was talking to one, and I'm like, how do you do this? How do you stitch so much and design so much? And she was like, well, I give myself an hour every morning. And I'm like, you're kidding me. I'm like, if I set an alarm, I don't think I would be able to get up and leave it. So, it's my own issue that I've got to overcome. But yeah, one of these days I keep thinking, I really do need to figure out what way it will work for me so I can go back and stitch some more as well. 'Cause I really enjoy it and I do miss it, but
yeah, see, I would think that you would just be dying when you come up with a new canvas, just be dying to stitch it just to see what it's like.
Yeah. Well,
Not so much.
Sometimes. Well, yes and no. I'm probably one of those people that will I'll look at the canvas and I'll go, well, I could do this, or I could do that, or I could do this, I could do that. Oh my gosh, which one do I do?
Yeah.
And then it's paralyzing.
I ponder over it way too much. So I let the professionals do it.
Do you normally have somebody stitch each one of yours? Do you have people that stitch a model for you?
No. Just
you just crank out canvases. Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes, like I said, like I will ask people and say, okay, I really need to see this one stitched. And sometimes, I'll get a call and say, hey, is there anything that you think you want to have stitched? And, because I get so sort of tied up in my own little world of, okay, so I've got this, and I've got 5 more sitting on the corner of my desk that I've already got designed, and it's just, but I want to do that one.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the stitching thing. I want to paint that one.
Uh-huh.
So.
Do you get followers? You must get followers, people who are just obsessed with your designs and want every one of them.
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I do have quite a few people that like certain things, like the cottages or the snowmen, and and it's nice to know that people are out there and they do like 7 of the pieces or whatever, and they feel like they just have to stitch them, or so
I mean, I could see somebody wanting to have all of your snowmen made into ornaments or stand-ups or something for a Christmas display. I mean, I could see that easily.
Mm-hmm. Right. I know there was and I can't remember who she was, but there was someone who had posted on Facebook. I think she did every one of those brightly colored, the large, they're like 8x9 inch snowmen, and she had done all her own stitches, and she had them all finished into pillows. And
oh wow,
it was. Yeah, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It was nice. So I really do get a kick out of seeing what people come up with. I guess in some sense I live vicariously through seeing what people have stitched, and and I love hearing that. Sometimes I'll get people saying, "Oh, it just made me smile," and I'm like, "Oh, that's all I want. That's perfect, because that's I guess my goal. It's, if you look at it and it makes you smile and it makes you happy, that's I think that's kind of just my my design style. I like to make people smile or laugh. I love it when they look at something and they start laughing. Sometimes it takes them a little while. I have this one that they were in my booth looking at. It's a really simple ornament, and it's got hoe, and then it's got a 3. It's hoe to the 3rd. Mm-hmm. And she's like, hoe to the 3rd. And she had to think, and she's like, oh, I get it. That was funny. I'm like, yeah.
Now, see, that's I'm not a painted canvas person, but that's one that, that's the top of my list to do, because I just love the whole cubed. But so you're the one that came up with that originally?
Are there more than that one out there?
Oh, okay. I don't know. I've just seen that one, and that's the one.
Yeah, I haven't seen any other ones like that, but it wouldn't be uncommon. I think there's only so many. I guess not ideas, but like snowmen. I mean, it's a category, and we all, a lot of us do snowmen. To see somebody do snowmen with red and white striped scarves, probably there are a lot of them out there. Do you know what I mean? It's
yeah.
I'm sure if somebody else did a hoe cube, that there's probably a much different interpretation of it. But yeah. But yeah, that was, well, I have to tell you a funny story about this because, you were teasing me earlier that this isn't rocket science. Well, that's kind of what my dad does. So I had showed it to him and he's like, Diane, that's wrong, right? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, technically you have an H and an O you have the O that's cubed, because if you wanted the hoe to be cubed, you needed to put parentheses around it. And I'm like,
Engineers.
Okay, Dad, this is artistic's license here, right? So get out of the math. Oh, it made me laugh. I'm like, yeah, only my dad would point that out to me.
Yeah, I'd have just taken my canvas and walked out of the room. Leave me alone. But he's right.
But, yeah. Technically, he's right, but
But that just sucks the fun right out of it. That just come on.
Yeah, that was kind of a fun sucking moment.
But that's why I did it. That's where engineers and scientists get joy, is out of pointing out the skills of others.
That's right. They like to point out when people are wrong.
Yes.
Oh man, that's just okay.
Tell me it's wrong. Don't disagree with me, Gary.
No, but see now seeing, I thought that was so creative, but now he's right, and so now.
So I ruined it for you.
Yeah. Probably not enough that I won't stitch it, but still, yeah.
You can add the parentheses if you want to, and then
true.
Then the world will be fine.
That's right. Any mathematician that will say that is correct.
Yes.
Right. It's all fixable.
I saw a canvas a design the other day. I don't know if it was a canvas or whatever, but it was a musical thing. And so it was a quarter, a one count quarter rest signature or sign with a fermata over the top, which it musically means rest, no sound for this one count, and then the fermata means until the director tells you to move on. And so it's basically, and the person said, so basically what it says is shut up. Just, I thought that was,
That's excellent.
Yeah, because you would never have a fermata over a rest. You'd have it over a chord. Yeah, I thought, okay,
awesome.
That was, got to do that.
That's pretty.
Only the musically inclined would understand that.
Right, that's just it, yeah.
To read music to get that joke. I like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's funny.
Yep. Okay, so now I got to buy your canvas and put parentheses in. All right, thanks a lot to your dad. Yep, great.
I'll let him know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, I love that. Mm-hmm. All right, well, there we have it, right there. I think that's going to be it, right there. We're going to end on whole cube with parentheses. Mm-hmm.
My incorrect ruined canvas.
Yes, that's going to be it. Diane, really been a treat. Thanks for taking time with us and
absolutely.
Well,
this has been fun.
Yeah,
I've enjoyed talking with you.
Really appreciate it. And with that, we'll end it. And thanks for listening. And Christine and I will be back on Wednesday.